Alright, let's see if our microphone is working. See if our microphone is working. That actually sounds pretty good. See if our microphone is working. That actually sounds pretty good. Okay. Oh boy, always important to stretch. I'm gonna call this the night before emergency practice session, you could call it. So we've got a round to play tomorrow. Nice and early. Also cracked a golf ball for the first time. Hey, Tom's from Scotland is in here. See, Rich said hi. 2:30 a.m. in Scotland. Unbelievable. Thanks for checking out the stream, my dude. Although, it is late at night. Are you always up late at night? 2:30 is late. If I stay up till like 12:30 now, I almost have a hangover the next day. Oh, that was Toad. Toad it again. See, Rich says he's got a tournament tomorrow. That's awesome. That's very exciting. Rest up. Try to get some light stretching in. Have you done your tournament prep? You know, have you gone through the course on 18 birdies? That can be a really good exercise to familiarize yourself with the course so that you aren't trying to make club selections, you know, for the first time in real time, right? You want to be like, oh, I already looked at this third hole. I think it's going to be a 3-wood down the right side. And, you know, if I hit a good one, I'll have an 8-iron into the green or whatever it is. That can be a really helpful exercise just so that you don't feel like in a tournament, in competitive play, is your first time, you know, analyzing the shots. That was hit really good. Oof. I played... When did I play? I played on Sunday. And I hit the ball really well. I 3-putted a couple times. It's a pretty disappointing 79 that I shot on Sunday. But, you know, I learned a lot. Still getting some things dialed in with the swing. I mean, I hit more fairways than I hit greens, so that's a really good sign. I was, you know, in play off the tee really consistently. Oh, that was not hit very well. Hey, what's up, DJ Wood? DJ Wood's back in here. Oh, well, I'm sorry you had a tough day, Tom, but I'm glad that you can come in here and hang out and just, you know, get some better vibes going. Some days are like that, my dude. You know? You just got to make the best of them and try to find something good tomorrow. I had a day kind of like that yesterday. I was just like, man, I'm not really feeling like doing much of anything. Which is you know, for me, pretty unusual, but when I start getting, you know, really stressed or my anxiety starts getting to me, that's kind of what I struggle with. I'm actually going to be starting up some therapy again soon, which I'm pretty excited about. You guys have seen me make videos about that stuff before. But really good tool in the arsenal. Just like golf can be, right? I use golf to relax and a way to keep my mind off tough things. Oh, that's awesome, C. Rich. Glad to hear that. Bebsy said hello. Hello, Bebsy. GP said hello. What's up, guys? If you guys are enjoying the stream, you want to hit subscribe, I appreciate it. Practice rounds are always great. That's even better than doing the kind of walkthrough on the screen, you know? What I'm working on right now, guys, is really trying to cover the ball in the downswing with my chest. Right, I started getting a little bit underneath it and getting my shoulders rotating open and hitting a bunch of pulls with the irons. You know, balls that were starting left of my intended target line and then sometimes even continuing to turn from there. So that's what I was struggling with the irons. Doesn't help if you completely drop the club. Who else is in the chat? What's up, Keith? Short-sided chips absolutely crushed my soul on the weekend. How many tips to not snap every club I own? Well, first thing I would say is that you'll mostly be disappointed in yourself afterwards if you break your clubs. It doesn't actually make you feel better in the long run, so that's not suggesting you know, I'm not telling you what to do, but just know that it doesn't really work. The best thing I would say is, you know, just do some review, right? Be honest with yourself about, like, well, why did I have that short-sided chip? Was I getting too aggressive with my target? Was I, you know, did I just execute poorly, right? Did I have a conservative target and just hit a really poor golf shot? You know, I had a couple in my round that I was pretty disappointed in myself that in just execution, right? Like, I actually think I had a good plan. And then a couple where I was like, wow, that was just a really silly, you know, shot to hit or hit the wrong club. So I'm focusing more on for myself anyway, the mental errors, right? Trying to clean those up because I know that I'm putting the time in and that, you know, the execution will be there. Still got to stay more. But yeah, excited to play again tomorrow morning. That's going to be great. Colton said hi. Hey, Colton. What's up, Hearns? Sycamore, this is 4-iron. Just for practice. Bonifacio said hi. Hey, Bonifacio. Bob asked, what ball do you use? I was a Pro V1 guy exclusively for a really long time, but this year I've been trying and really liking the TP5X. That's a TaylorMade golf ball. Been having a lot of success with that. It feels to me like it's just a touch lower spin off the driver, which I really like. What's the key to hitting long irons? Hitting the center of the face, making a smooth swing that you can control, right? And not being in a rush. You know, it's a pretty long club. You got to let it swing around you for a while. Don't let the transition get too quick this way, right? You got to really almost feel like a Hideki pause at the top. And sometimes you hit them like that. Do you try to play the same approach club to avoid that? The low to high drill with the club cover to the side fixed my slice. That's amazing, Hellsdale. Thank you very much for coming back to tell me about that. That's very cool. Wow, so it actually worked. No, I'm just kidding. I knew it would work. Haha. Do you want to play to the same approach club to avoid that? Oh, no, I don't think that so much. I guess when I was saying, you know, evaluate your game, right? Like, why were you short-sighted, right? You know, you can, it's okay to miss greens, right? You just want to try to miss them in the right spots to give yourself the best chance of getting up and down. That's more what I meant. But strategically, you still want to advance the ball as close to the green and the hole with each shot as you possibly can, you know, without hitting into hazards and things like that. Lay off with your arm. I'm not sure I know what you mean, Sycamore. What do you recommend to not fat your shots? Any advice? Okay, so if you're hitting it fat, right, what's happening is the low point of your swing, which we want to be in front of the ball, right, so that we can hit the ball first and then the turf. If you're hitting it heavy, that means you're hitting the ground first, right, and your weight is stuck on your backside, right? Because think about it, if I just make a backswing and I keep my weight back here, it goes backwards, right? I'm gonna inevitably hit the ground back here, right? If I make a backswing and I don't shift my weight at all, I can get back to the ball, right? But I'm not gonna make a very powerful strike on it. You know, I can kind of scoop it up a little. But if I really wanted to compress the ball and hit it a long way, right, I would make my backswing, right? And then I would shift my weight forward into this side and move that low point forward. And then I'm really in business hitting down on the ball, hitting the ball first, right? So the reason you're hitting it fat is your weight's getting stuck this way on the backswing. So to practice that, you can do some drills. Here's a great drill for that. Put a golf ball under your right foot, right? And make some practice swings where you really feel like you're getting your weight. You can't really, because you'll be standing on the ball, right? It wouldn't feel great if you were to lean back and keep your weight there, right? But really feel that weight getting forward in order to move that low point if you're hitting it fat. Any tips for 3-wood? It's not been doing good off the fairway. I think just smooth it out, C. Rich. Okay, I'm reading. Oh, Shooter said hi. Hey, Shooter. Slotham says, I hit the ball, it immediately closes. No matter what I can do, I can't prevent it from doing that. Slicing right every drive. Shows me my club opens when I hit the ball, then immediately closes. I don't know anybody who does junior leagues. I have the chicken wing finish with my left arm help. Okay, so chicken wing finish. What does that mean, guys? Right? It means we have some disconnection, right, in the way through. And you see this kind of bent left arm, right? That's what that comment is referring to, right? So I've got a great drill for you. You're going to grab a towel, right? This one's maybe a little big, but, you know, find a towel, right? And you're going to tuck it under your arms, all right? And make some swings. You can even hit balls doing this drill, right? Where you got to make sure that this towel doesn't drop away from your body, right? So it's going to teach you to really make a connected swing, right? See how I can make a full backswing? I can get a good turn, but I still have that towel in place. I'm keeping that connection, right? And same thing on the way through. It will force you to keep the connection such that if you make that chicken wing move, right, and you go this way, you lost the towel, right? So this is a great drill for ball striking, for feeling connection in your swing, right? And then once you've got it set up, you just come in and you can make some, start at maybe 60% speed. You don't have to make a full swing, right? But just really try to feel what it feels like to, maintain that position all the way through the swing, through impact. Right, maybe get a slightly smaller towel. That's a cool one, though. That's from when my wife and I went to Antarctica. Very cool place. Brooks said, great advice. Thanks, Brooks. Do you ever sit on a golf ball or club? Not intentionally. Hey, I have a tournament tomorrow. I have a bad pull with a hook. How do I either stop pulling or create a draw? So, good question. So the pull, right, is the path being across it. This is what I've been struggling with a little bit, right? The path getting a little bit to the left with the face square, right? That's a straight pull, right? One that really doesn't curve one way or the other. And if you're hitting a pull draw, right, then the face is slightly closed, right? So to hit a draw, you've got to get the path shifted out to the right. A couple ways you can do that, right? You can swing it more to the right and work on that. You could move the ball position back, right? That would cause you to impact the ball, later, or sooner in the arc, right? If it's more forward, it will launch further left, right? So what you really need to neutralize, right, is the path and the face being slightly more open, although it sounds like the face is pretty close, right? So you can feel like you're giving yourself a little bit more, face angle on the way back. You can open the face at address and make the same swing. A bunch of ways you can achieve that, but that's really what you got to get at. Rich kid play golf, real hard life. Towel drill slaps. Towel drill does slap. Shaxi said hi. Hey, Jordan. Oh, dang, towel again. Perfect, thanks. Golf God's greatest contribution, the towel. That's pretty funny. Where can I get a towel from? Are they rare? Don't forget to bring a towel. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. It is a really, really good drill. I mean, if it wasn't a good drill, you wouldn't see pros and all kinds of good players doing it all the time. But Tripadoodle, I've been struggling with this a little bit myself. The way I've been trying to work on it, and what I noticed was the face getting pretty closed on me at address, right? So trying to feel like it's pointed more to the right. Because I was hitting a lot of pulls, like straight ones, right? Like say I was aimed at the left edge of the green, the ball would just kind of start there, or maybe even left of there, and then fly straight, right? Not really cutting the way that I am hoping to see it. So I've been really trying to feel like, I'm exaggerating it a ton, right? I'm like fanning the face several degrees open, right? And just hitting balls to exaggerate, correcting that closed face such that hopefully, after a number of reps, right, when I do set it down and try to set it down, slightly square, right, then it's more in that neutral position that I'm looking for. Because again, I you guys have heard me say this before, but I don't like to feel a lot of face rotation in my swing, right? I like to feel like it's pretty locked in, and then I just turn, and the face is square to the path the whole time. Any tips on improving green reading? I do have tips for that. Try aim point. It's actually much, much easier to learn and practice and to get some confidence on the greens than you might expect. I was somebody who, I always felt like I read the greens pretty well, but I would second guess myself. Like, well, why didn't I just trust myself in the first one? Part of that was I hadn't hit thousands of reps in here, right, to practice my stroke, to know that, okay, if I make a good read, I can also hit my intended target line. And I'm still working on that. You guys have seen the playlist of videos. I've been doing 30 days of that. We're on day 12, I think. Just had our first perfect 50 for 50 performance in a video on the putting, so that was pretty cool. But anyway, so once you learn aim point, watch some videos. There's great resources. There's a great Adam Scott video with Lab Golf where he kind of goes through it, I think. And it, for me, just kind of freed up my mind to say, like, okay, it feels like a 2. I step here, okay, that's about where 2 is, and it's, okay, from 30 feet, maybe it's 2 cups, right? Whatever that point is that you see. And that's your target, right? And I don't have to second guess, like, did I really read the putt right? Did I, see something that's not there? I just kind of have a process where I trust it, and I say, okay, that's the read. We aim at that point, and if it goes in, it goes in, right? So for me, having that process and being able to free myself up, I found really helpful. Red Screen said, cool. What's up? Super Matty D, first 2 feet of your takeaway, do you hinge wrist hard and change face angle? No, I do kind of the opposite of that, to be honest with you. I feel almost like I'm dragging it, right, and letting it kind of hinge naturally. Like, if anything, I really feel the club hinge somewhat late in my swing, right? Because I'm trying to create width, right? So I don't have much hinge here at all, right? As opposed to somebody like Rory, right, who gets more than set like this, right, and then just turns that position to the top, kind of in one piece, right? But for me, I feel the hinge more late, but I think, again, it's one of those personal preference things. There's no right answer. If you can consistently, deliver the face and with a good path into the ball, that's all the golf ball cares about. We need to see a live 18-hole game with the boys. I've thought about that. I played golf with some buddies and just didn't feel like, live streaming is tough on the golf course, I think, because this, hitting a golf shot and even all the stuff leading up to it, you could talk through the shot. That's like, 90 seconds per hole at the most, right? But it takes, 15 minutes to play a hole because you got to walk to your ball, you got to wait for the green to clear, right? All this stuff. So, maybe I'm wrong, and you guys are like, no, dude, if you're playing golf, you should turn on the live stream and, like, we'll hang out and watch that. I definitely would do it. I'm reticent because I worry about the format. Like, at least in here, it can be a little more rapid fire. I can do drills and demonstrate stuff or, answer questions, right? Also kind of crazy, guys. First time ever that I've cracked a golf ball. That was in here. Connor, spamming the chat is not going to be the best strategy, but my handicap is usually between +1 and 1. Have you played both 18s there? At Cabot? No, I only played the Karoo course, and then we also played the wedge and the squeeze, so, the par 3 and the short course. But I only played the Karoo for the big courses. Oklahoma Kid said, yeah, we want to see it. So not really a hinge, just natural turn with backswing, right? Yeah, that's more how I feel it, right? I feel it as more, just we're trying to get the energy into a wide arc, and then the club, as my hands stop, right? Imagine like a yo-yo, right? If you were twirling it, kind of slow around your finger, but the part at the end might be going really fast, right? So our hands stop, but that club is still moving, and that to me is where I feel the real hinge, right? And then that's the lag that I try to then hold through impact, right? And then, you're trying to release it just after, kind of right at that moment of impact. So for me, a really good feel, right, is almost trying to feel like that pause at the top, right? Like, because that allows that lag and everything to kind of settle there, and then I can just turn and let it go. I think it's better solo. Would watch around. Okay, cool. VJ asks, what's your downswing feels? I try not to have downswing feels, really. I want to just get everything in a good spot and then let my body react, right? As long as I create space and I put the club in a good spot on the way up, right? I like having a backswing feel that to me right now is, you know, keeping this club out there, giving myself a bunch of width in the takeaway, right? Not getting it inside this way when my hands go out. But then from there, it's just kind of letting the coil and energy that you put into the club just fall on the back of it. If you want to have a downswing feel, I would tell you have it be something like follow through to a balanced finish, right? Like hold your finish for 5 seconds after impact. That's the kind of downswing feel that I think would work better. Pete said hi. What's up, Pete? Golf Guy said hi. What's up, Golf Guy? See you, C. Rich. Thanks for checking out the stream. Appreciate you guys being here. C. Rich is one of our longtime supporters. A bunch of those guys consistently coming back to support us, which is super cool. So if you're thinking about subscribing, you know, there's a pretty good crew here. And it also really helps me out, so I appreciate all the support, guys. Coming up on 2,000 subscribers, which is crazy to me. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Randy said, I'm buying a used Stealth 3 wood. I have a slower swing speed. Any insight on this club for a higher handicap like me? Well, Randy, I certainly, as you can probably tell, am a believer in and trust the TaylorMade brand. So I think you'll be fine there. If you are a newer golfer or, you know, higher handicap who hasn't developed a ton of speed yet, right? Understand that club might be slightly more difficult for you to launch off of the turf. You know, certainly with a tee, you could, you know, it would make it a lot easier. But, you know, as with any 3-wood or longer club, right, you want to really make sure that you're balanced and, you know, making a smooth swing, right? Because it's so important to try to hit the center of the club face, more so than squeezing out that extra, you know, 1, 2, 3% in club head speed, right? So keep that in mind, you know, when you're practicing with the 3-wood. But that's exciting to have a new club. What would be a golf rule you would change to make the game more enjoyable for you? Good question. I mean, some of them are like ones that are like real rules, and you know, but aren't really. And what I mean by that is, like hitting out of divots, I think is extremely silly. If you hit a ball in the fairway, I don't think you should have to play out of a divot. But I also don't think most people do that. Like, unless I'm playing in a tournament, if I walk up and see my ball in a divot, I'm gonna move it most of the time. But in tournaments, obviously not. You know, if you're so that's a rule I would definitely change. And I would make like 8 or 9 minute tee times like banned. Like, I think tee time should be 12 minutes. There's no, like, it's just about money, right? And everyone ends up having a bad time when it's super backed up. You know, find a way, whether it's a combination of enforcement, you know, getting people to play the right tees, right? Like, just move up the tees. Force people to play from further forward. Because the worst thing to me is trying to play golf and it takes 6 hours. That to me is like, I'm not sure I even want to be here. And I love golf as much as anybody. I just can't. I can't get in. I can't do it with really slow play. So pick clean, creating space. What I mean by that is, for me, what I've been focusing on, right, is not early extending, right, and getting closer into the ball. So by creating space, what I'm talking about is creating space here, right? By rotating my pelvis and keeping my glutes moving backwards in the downswing, right? Because I need this space for my arms to come through to hit the ball, right? That also gives us time. Time and space are really what we're trying to create so that we can get to here, and then boom, we have all this room to hit it, right? You get really stuck when you're, in here, early extending, right, and steep. So that's what I meant by that. Hopefully that helps. Okay. Do I recommend the net? I definitely do. This is the Net Return Pro. I'm a huge fan of it. I definitely feels built to last. So I have a big problem. Consistency is my killer. I can get it flush every time. I either hit top of the ball or take the grass behind it. So a good drill, Elvis, would be to grab like a pitching wedge. Try to hit it maybe 40 yards in the air. Right? And you're just going to make little swings like this. You can put a piece of tape or an old glove right behind your ball. This will give you some feedback to say, okay, did I actually hit the ball cleanly? Right? And just work on your strike at a much slower speed, right? Don't try to swing full speed and improve your contact, right? But some little swings. Truly just, try to hit it 40 yards. But you've got to make sure that you're focused on hitting the center of the club face, making that crisp contact, right? It sounds like you know how to do it, just not consistently. So train that skill. The skill is hitting the center of the club face, and with a descending angle, right? Making a quality strike on the ball. And you can train that skill effectively without a ton of speed. And then once you've got that pretty dialed in, right, then you add a little speed until you get to a full swing and you feel like you can replicate that consistent, crisp contact 10 out of 10 times, right? You might have to hit, 5,000 balls with a half swing until you can do it, 10 times in a row. But that is the goal, right? That's how you get to a really high level of ball striking. Golf Guy's got a story. What's up, Golf Guy? I was watching the practice round at Muirfield Village Golf Club. Daniel Berger was playing, so I asked him for an autograph, and I got the autograph. That's very cool. Hey, bro, how to hit a hybrid? Try to hit it like an iron. That's my best advice for you, Joshua. What's up, Joshua? Welcome back to the stream. Yeah, got to make sure you're, don't play it too far forward. Just make sure you give it a nice, that same kind of high to low quality iron feel strike, right? Because that hybrid has enough loft on it. It'll send the ball up in the air. So that's my best piece of advice. Even, with like a 5-wood, 3-wood, you can hit down on it slightly. Do you have any tips for the trail elbow and the downswing? I feel like I keep getting stuck on my side. So Cody, the best drill I have for this, right, is this is one of the Rory drills you'll see on YouTube all the time, right? So split grip, almost like you were going to hit a slap shot, right? Not quite that, it has to be really split to hit a slap shot, right? But end of the grip, right? And from the top of the backswing, really feel like that elbow stays in front of you, right? You're talking about getting stuck back here, and then you're kind of having to, you're going to block it, or you're going to flip it and hit a hook, right? We've all had that kind of stuck late on it feeling. So that can be a good one to really feel just how much, kind of right side crunch, right, contraction you need to control that low point and keep the arms in front of you, right? So you'll notice that's, really a good way to keep the arms in front of you this way. So give that one a try, Cody. How do you stay focused while you play? Great question. I wish I had a good answer. I try to, think about one shot at a time. Like, oh, maybe I just hit a bad shot and I'm kind of ticked at myself, but hey, that's only going to make me hit the next shot worse or, not at maximum focus, right? So I do my best to really try to play one shot at a time. It's very difficult, right? Golf is long. 18 holes is a lot. It's a lot of mental energy. Rachel said hi, and then Sojo says, you're hands down the most handsome golfer. I appreciate that. Keeping the tilt. What about handling the church pews at Oakmont Country Club? Well, I know that I would try really hard not to hit it in there, because that would be tough. Rachel says, I love golf. Me too, Rachel. You're welcome, Connor. Connor said he subbed. Amazing. Thanks, Connor. I appreciate the sub. If you guys are enjoying the stream and you want to subscribe like Connor, join us on these live stream chats. Check out all the videos of the golf we're playing. That would be awesome, Depending on how long we stream for tonight, it could be, we could get past 2,000 subs live on the stream. I think we hit 1,000 live on the stream too. That was really cool. You guys were getting all gassed up. Everybody was subbing. I think we started that day at like 900 and then just had a ton of people subscribing in the live stream. So maybe today will be like that. And you know what? If not, I'm still going to have a good time hitting some balls, hanging out with you guys. Because that's really what it's about. Although the amount of support does make it much, much easier to, feel motivated to come out here and hang out with you guys. Do you feel like the Pels tutor practice has translated to the course? It definitely has. When I get done editing the round from Sunday, you guys will see a bunch of putts that went in that, I feel like historically I wouldn't have made in that 5 to 10 foot range. And just hitting better putts, right? Hitting my lines, even if, a couple putts where they didn't go in or they burned the edge, but they started on my intended line. And I think, so that's great from an outcome perspective, but also just process-wise, because I've been putting in so much work on the Pels tutor, I think just the confidence is there, right? I step over the ball and I feel like, okay, if I make a good stroke, which I still made a couple bad strokes, so I didn't miss putts because of it, but I feel just so much more confident that I'm going to make a quality stroke and start the ball at least pretty close to my intended start line. Golf Guy also subbed. Amazing. What do you usually shoot? Recently, it's been in like the mid to high 70s, but we've been struggling with some stuff. But ideally, in the kind of low 70s range. Who's my favorite golfer? Good question. At the moment, if you made me pick one, I'd probably say Ludwig, just because I really love his golf swing. I know he hasn't been playing all that well, but I just think his golf swing is so good. That's the kind of strike for. All right, who else has got questions? You're welcome, Cody. Ty said, I keep pulling my irons hard and hooking them. Is there an easy fix? So first, Ty, understand like what's happening. When you're pulling it, that means the path is slightly to the left, right? And if you're hooking it, the face is closed. So you got to neutralize both those things. Best thing I would do to, quick fix, if you're like, hey, I have one bucket of balls and I've been hitting this pull draw, how do I fix it, right? Learn how to hit some big block cuts, right? Get the face really open, get the path way more out to the right, right? See the ball launching further to the right and cutting. So the complete opposite of what you're doing now, right? You can imagine you're aimed right at the center of the green or down the fairway, and you're going to force yourself to hit it in the right trees. Like make the ball go over there. And you're just going to give your body and brain a task and, you know, see what you do naturally to adjust the club face, neutralize the path to produce that result, I think that can be really helpful. So remember, guys, the golf ball only cares about, you know, what the club is doing at impact, right? You know, in relative to our target, because we're trying to hit it to a certain place, right? So let the golf ball tell you what's, you know, what the matter is, and then try to do the exact opposite, and you'll end up somewhere in the middle. Okay, Max said, tips for getting arms fully extended out after making contact with the ball. Tend to close my arms into my body and get the chicken wing thing. So best thing you're going to do for this, right, is the towel drill. We did this one a few minutes ago. If you guys didn't see it, right, but grab a towel. You're going to tuck it under your arms. This is a classic drill. Everybody does this, right? You're trying to maintain this connection between our arms and our chest and the club, right? So that when you swing back, this towel doesn't drop, right? If I get too disconnected up this way, boom, lost it. Same idea in the downswing. If you don't drop the golf club, right? Backswing, downswing. If you chicken wing it, you're going to lose it again, right? So make some, you know, hit some half swings where you keep that towel connected and in place, right? Because you're trying to feel, again, like everything is turning together. So that can be really effective for, you know, trying to be like, oh, it'll just kind of click. You're like, oh, that's what it feels like, right? Drew said, best way to not have your group hate you when you're brand new and play as a single. So I think just be really, really honest and be like, hey guys, I'm brand new. I'm going to do my best to keep up. And, you know, if there's anything that you see me doing that I could do better, you know, I think just kind of be self-aware and, you know, again, as long as you're a nice guy and, you keep up with pace of play and, you know, if you've hit the ball 6 or 7 times on a hole, then pick it up and, you know, meet him on the next tee. You know, just remember that if you're not playing in a competitive round, you know, you don't have to hit the putts 5 times to get it in the hole. You don't have to, you know, take all your drops, right? You know, just try to keep up with pace of play, I think, is the biggest thing. But yeah, just, you know, some self-awareness. Jack asks, any tips for resetting after a bad shot? Yeah, what I try to do is remind myself that the bad shots are kind of like the exception, not the rule, right? And you don't have to, like, if you hit a bunch of really good shots, you wouldn't, you know, think much of it. But all of a sudden, you know, you hit one bad shot and we get all frazzled. Our brains are like, oh my God, you know, do I need to fix my swing? What's wrong, right? A technique that I was taught a long time ago is if you hit a really, really bad shot, right? Like, you know, I've missed 2-foot putts in tournaments. I've probably topped balls in tournaments, right? And the best thing to do is just immediately laugh at yourself, right? It's hard to get angry if you're actively laughing. You might look like a little bit of a psychopath when you're on the golf course if you, like, you know, hit a screaming line drive and just start cackling to yourself, right? But it can be effective to, you know, just help yourself say, okay, like, that was hilarious. Not going to hit a lot of shots of that, you know, nature regularly, right? And you just try to let it go. And, you know, once you learn that purely from an efficiency standpoint, right? If you are concerned about shots that you've hit in the past, and that is detracting from your focus on the current shot, the only thing you can do is make it worse, right? You're not going to make the current shot better by being focused on a shot you've already hit. So just being like, oh, well, if I want to hit this shot as best I can, then from an effectiveness standpoint, I need to be as focused as I can and not worry about the old shots. So Brad said, good swing. Is it true that if you put chapstick on the face of your driver, your shot will go straight? Yeah, that is true. Yeah, it takes all the spin off. Also, good golfer choice. Driver setup. I have the QI10 Max. It's a 9-degree head that I have turned down to 7 to keep the spin down. And I've got my same Oban Kiyoshi purple shaft in it. I think that's the 05 65 gram one. Same shaft I have in my 3-wood and 5-wood, except they get progressively heavier, right? The driver's the lighter one. Okay. You're welcome, Ty. Yeah, give it a try. Phil says, how do you get the lag to turn first? Do you turn first or your arms? So lag, remember guys, is kind of just like a consequence, right? A thing that happens because we're putting speed and energy into this golf club when we make the backswing, right? We're pushing, into the ground, squatting, right? That's where the energy comes from. And then this club needs to change direction, right? So imagine if you had like a rope, or we could use a towel again, right? Where did I put it? It's over here, right? So imagine this is your golf club, and you had to send it up and then send it back down and try to create speed down here, right? Well, you would send it up, and then there's, when the transition happens, right, there's that resetting effect, right? It's the same thing in our golf swing, right? The lag comes from the shifting of direction, right? And this angle between our wrists and the golf club, right? And that's what you're trying to hold and then release at the golf club. So I think, again, lag is more a consequence of, having proper sequencing and a good transition, right? It's just kind of there, right? So it's not so much about what the arms or the chest are doing, but if you sequence your golf swing correctly, you should create some lag. You're welcome, Max. I hope that's helpful. Francisco said, did you talk about backswing? I feel like I'm trying too hard. And then Gabe said hi. Hey, Gabe. So in the backswing, right, again, everyone's swing is going to be different, but let's just talk about generally what are the objectives, right? Our goal is to get some energy into this club so that we can get it back down into the golf ball, right? We're trying to position the golf club so that we can return it. And when I say the club, I mean mostly the face, right? So we can get the club face onto the ball in a way that sends it, towards our target with the flight that we're looking for, the shape, right? So in the backswing, that's our objective, right? How do we go about doing that? It's important to remember we're swinging a stick with a piece of metal on the end around our body and then into the ground, right? So you don't need to overcomplicate it. And a good way to feel, like what do you want the backswing to feel like? Imagine you had a kettlebell and you were holding it like this, right? And you had to throw it as far as you could down your target line, right? And just, well, what's your body going to do? You're going to, start this way, and then you're going to create some momentum, sink into the ground, right? And then you're going to, brace and throw your arms down that target, right? That's all a golf swing is. We're just holding a club, and we're using the club to hit the ball. But the way that our body creates speed is the same, right? So that's your backswing. That's your downswing. This is why you see a lot of golf fitness, like TPI type stuff, right? Where they do a lot of heavy med ball throws, ball slams, right? Overhead type stuff. Training all of those muscles. So hopefully that helps, Francisco. I know that was a little bit meandering of an answer. Mr. Ducky asks, should I keep my wrists and arms straight the whole swing? No, you shouldn't. The left arm will stay pretty straight through most of the swing, right? Because this is the radius of the arc, right, that we're creating. So, I think I got that right. That arm will stay pretty straight because, again, if we create a wider arc, we can generate more speed. And if we generate more speed, we can hit the golf ball further, which is good. So the left arm will stay straight, right? But this right arm and my wrists are definitely going to, flex some, right? If I kept my wrist completely straight, I suppose I could, kind of have almost like a Steve Stricker kind of no wrist action type swing. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but a little bit untraditional maybe, because there is certainly some speed to be gained from that unlevering of the wrists, right, into impact. Nezrin said hi. Hey, Nezrin. What's up, Chopahala? Oh, Tofa-Cola. Sorry. Any help on driving? Sure, Chris. So with driver, right, I don't have my driver in here at the moment, but remember that our swing and our goal with the driver is different. We're trying to hit up on the ball. We're trying to take spin off, send that ball up into the air. Whereas with the irons, it's the complete opposite, right? We're trying to swing from high to low into the ball, right, on a descending angle. So my best tip with driving, right, is make sure that you are, have that feeling of low to high, right? Because you really want to get that angle of attack positive at impact, so you can send that ball up into the air, right? And that, I'm assuming, right, that you have, you've hit the center of the club face regularly. You're welcome, Francisco. Mr. Ducky said, I'm lefty. Did I miss your question? I don't think so. If you're lefty, then it's same thing, just with the opposite one. Opposite shoulder, right? How can I hit my irons better? So I think learning impact and then working backwards is the best way to hit your irons better. And when I say learn impact, right, it's how can I deliver this club with the handle forward, some descending angle, right? The club face is pointed at my target. My path is towards the target, right? And you can train that at very slow speed. So you can get into your impact position and preset it to practice. Or you can just, I have a pitching wedge in my hand, and I'm going to imagine it's going to go 40 yards in the air, right? So I'm going to barely even hit it, but I'm going to really focus on making a nice, crisp strike on the ball out of the center of the club face, right? And you can just train this over and over and over again, because ground contact, face direction, and path control, right? These are the key things for ball striking, especially with our irons. So my best advice, you'll get so much further, so much faster if you train these skills independently at slower speeds, right? You're not trying to make a big full swing and hit this pitching wedge 150 yards. You're trying to make sure that you deliver a quality strike on the back of the ball. Got it. Chris said, any help on slice? I can help some slice. So if you are fighting the slice, the drill that I would have you do, right, grab a towel or an old head cover works really well, right, but I'll use a towel here. And if you're slicing, you're going to put this outside the ball and slightly behind it, right? Something like this. Because your slice is caused by this inside takeaway where the club steepens on the downswing, right? And you're attacking it from the outside across it. And the face is open, so you create that really high spinny shot that doesn't go very far, right? Almost like a drop shot in tennis. What you want to feel is like that club is closing more through impact, and you're attacking it in a more neutral way, from the inside even, right? And when you put this, towel or head cover there, the slice swing is blocked, right? You can't get to the ball if you make that inside over the top swing, right? So doing this drill and avoiding hitting the towel, right, will force you to hit it from the inside. And that can be a really effective drill to, give yourself some physical feedback when you're out there practicing. David says, I'm way better. How do we know you're good? Oh, Andy said hot trash. That's not very nice, David. I guess you don't know. Hey, guys. Hey, Merrick. Just chill out, bro. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Fixing overswing. Good question, Aiden. I've been working on this myself, especially with the driver, because I was getting really long in the backswing with the driver, right? And again, what I want you to do is exaggerate the opposite, right? So what I was doing in here, some on camera, some off, is I was making like half backswings with my driver and then trying to feel like I was getting at it, through at full speed, right? So trying to feel like instead of getting way back here, right, I was getting to here and then hitting it, right? And then trying to feel, like what's 3/4 feel like, right? And for me, and I look on video, like what feels like a 3/4 backswing with driver, it was like a full, club parallel, plenty long. Right, so I'm still working on that feeling of trying to get it shorter. But hopefully that helps. Big Game Hunter said hi. Elijah said hi. Hey, guys. Mac asked, why can't our driver swing be the same as the iron swing? Well, you got to remember, Mac, that the objectives are different, so the swings have to be a little different. The objective with the driver, right, is to hit make a swing where at impact the angle of attack is positive relative to the ground, where we hit a shot that does not spin much and flies, high into the air, right? So we have to be hitting up on it. And then also remember that the driver is the longest club, so the swing will be the longest, it will be the flattest, right? So the swing is different. Whereas with the iron, we want to feel that more high to low, like we're on top of it, hitting down into the ball, hitting the ball first, right? You'll see good players with angles of attack with irons that are, -4, -5, -6, right? So you can really, hit down on it and de-loft it. So I think it's important to have some, some things to remind yourself, right? For me, it's kind of a weight distribution. I try to feel with the irons like I'm more, 55, 60% on my front leg, whereas with the driver, it's more even maybe 55 on the back leg to start, right? So try to build in some, reminders, some easy things to work on your swing, when you're to practice that driver to iron transition, because it's something I struggle with too. Are divots important for compression? No, because remember that by the time you're making a divot, the ball's already gone, right? The reason that it's like you want to, make a divot in order to hit the ball and compress it is because that means that you're, have a descending blow on it, right? But you certainly could hit high quality compressed golf shots without taking much of a divot, right? You can compress the ball and, sweep it off the turf, so to speak, right? It just means that your angle of attack is shallower after impact, right? As opposed to a steeper swing where the ball's gone and then you're going really deep into the turf before the club starts coming back up. So, that's talking about like depth of divot, right? whenever I swing, I rotate after I swing through and mostly use my arms. And I have a chicken wing. How do I fix that? Good question. So forgive me, guys. You see me demonstrate this, but it's just, we're going to keep going back to it. So if you've got the chicken wing, and when we say chicken wing, we're talking about this front arm through impact getting kind of disconnected, right? We're trying to hit the ball, and this arm is looking kind of like this, right? So what you got to work on is keeping everything more connected. So grab your golf towel, tuck it under the arms, just like this in your armpits, right? And practice making some swings where you don't let the towel fall, right? So backswing, towel stays connected, downswing, towel stays connected, right? If I make the chicken wing, right? So if you look like this, boom, lost the towel because I've lost the connection here, right? That's going to lead to all kinds of inconsistencies. Not to say, I mean, you can play amazing golf. Lee Westwood, great example of a pretty bent left arm and impact, right? But, you know, you got to be an elite ball striker and really practice that position. So again, I think most people will be better served with more connection throughout the swing this way, right? Keeping everything moving as one piece. So give that drill a try. Big Game Hunter says, every time I swing my irons, I always open my face to the club. How do I fix that? So if you're opening the face, right? I'm going to demonstrate it this way. Imagine you had a steering wheel in front of you, right? If you turn that steering wheel to the right, this way, that's going to open the face. That's opening the face this way, right? The face is right here, right? This is closed. This is open. So if you turn that wheel to the right, you're going to open it. You need to feel the opposite, right? Almost like you're trying to hold that wheel to the left some in the takeaway, right? Almost like you're going the other way. Another way you can practice this is, imagine that your golf club had some eyeballs on it, right? Googly eyes. And you need those googly eyes to look at the golf ball until the club gets parallel to the ground, right? So this will help you keep that club face more closed, more square, right? Instead of opening it, right? Where are my googly eyes looking? They're looking up there someplace, right? That's the open one. If I keep it square, boom, where are they looking? Right at the ball, right? So instead of flying the face, turn that wheel a little more to the left, right? Keep those eyes looking at the ball. That should work really well for, you know, keeping the club face a little more square. Mohammed said hi. What's up, Mohammed? Jeremy Summers said hi. Hey, Jeremy. And then Jeremy said, how do I fix over-the-top swing? Great question, Jeremy. So understand, a lot of people struggle with this, the over-the-top swing. It's very common. And I'm going to, you know, number one, I want you to understand why it happens, right? When you swing over the top, which is, just so everyone understands, when the path, you know, the plane of the swing is inside this way, and then over the top this way, right? So it looks like a loop, kind of inside and then over the top is what we call it, right? So the over the top move is mostly caused by the inside takeaway, right? Because if you gave yourself plenty of width, you know, unless you applied a ton of right hand, which is something I'm familiar with, you know, you wouldn't really steepen the club that much, right? So Jeremy, what I want you to practice, number one, is you can grab another golf ball even, right? Set it up directly behind. And what you want to practice is sending that ball straight back in a line along your target line, right? And this is going to have you practice keeping that width in your takeaway, right? When I get to here, I want that club head to be as far away from me as I can. I can't reach out and touch it, right? See how far away the club head is from me right now? When I keep it in a nice position, right, where it's slightly outside my hands here. If I get narrow, right, where I bring the club head in this way, right, look how close it is. I can nearly reach it. So from here, to get back to the ball, right, there's no space here. You have to go this way to get to it. So that's what's happening and why, right? And then what do we do about it? So we talked a little bit already about getting more width in the takeaway. So keeping that club head far out there can help, right? But what we really need is almost the opposite loop, right? Where it's outside and then this way, as opposed to the over-the-top one that you're familiar with, right? So how do we drill that? Grab a head cover. I have a towel here, right? But your driver head cover can work well. And you're going to put it just behind and to the right of your golf ball. And what this is going to do, it's going to block your path to the ball such that if you do make that over-the-top swing, right, you're going to hit this towel, this head cover, before you even get there. You won't be able to hit it. And it will give you some good immediate feedback if you do make that swing, right? Such that when you do it correctly and you approach the ball from the inside, right, that head cover, that towel, it's not going anywhere. I'm not going to touch it. It's not in my way. So that can be, hopefully that helps. That's kind of, soup to nuts what you want to, work on. That's, why the over-the-top move is happening. And, a drill that you can do to work on it. Another one that can be really helpful, Jeremy, is if you're right-handed, grab the club in just your left hand, and you're going to make some lead arm only swings, right? So if you're a lefty, you'd grab it in your right hand, but I'm going to demonstrate this way, right? Feet together to start. Club starts out in front of you. As you swing it back, you're going to take a small step forward, right? And that's your swing. And just feel the sequencing and how your body wants to move without this right arm attached, right? And add that step, and you'll start to feel like, wow, I'm turning more through it. I don't have any reason, unless my right hand's on the club, to send it out this way, right? Steepen it. So you'll feel how it wants to sort of naturally just fall and shallow this way, right? And I love doing this to warm up, to really feel, good sequencing, staying balanced through finish. And then from there, the right arm's just kind of along for the ride, adding a little bit of speed at the end, but I'm wondering if you hit the ball left arm or right arm, which one is main? So I understand the golf swing now as like a mostly lead side. If you're a right-handed player, it's a left side movement, right? We're mostly doing most of the work with our left arm, our left hip and feet and foot, I should say, right? Pushing off the ground. So you'll see a lot of good players who practice, hitting shots, better than I just did, but with just their lead side, right? I'm glad that helped, Jeremy. How can I get a more consistent swing? Good question, Jarvin. I'll get to you, Tyler. Don't worry, my dude. Okay, so consistency, right, just means repeatability, right? You want to make sure that you're delivering the club in a consistent way, swing after swing. And the best way to do that, I think, is once you learn impact, right? So how do I correctly, or how do I deliver with my own body, my own skill set, what feels good to me, but once I get to that impact position, how do I then work backwards to, start to own my swing, to start to feel comfortable, what shots feel best to me? Is it a draw? Is it a fade? What are some, drills that I can keep going back to, right? I have certain drills, like you guys have seen me do before, where I'll preset my impact position like this, right? And I'll come back to this time and time again when I'm hitting it well, when I'm not hitting it well, because I know that drill for me is really effective in maintaining that consistency. But you're exactly right, Jarvin. There are days where our swing's going to be really good. It's going to feel super slotted. We know where the club face is. It's going right at our target. And then the next day you can wake up and be like, what's happened? I completely forgot how to do this. Everything feels weird. The club feels heavy, right? All kinds of stuff can happen day to day. But trying to build in some checkpoints, some drills, you know, some things that you can consistently go back to, right? It can be process, you know, things that you can, ways to maintain consistency. So that's my thought there. Hopefully that helps. Okay, so Tyler wants to hit the iron straighter. So what you got to do is neutralize the path and the club face, right? And what I would start with is making sure that you're hitting the center of the face and, you know, that your path isn't super, you know, across it or out to the right, right? And here's how you can do that. You know, I'm going to create this little drill setup here such that only if I hit the center of the face can I avoid that tape, right? If I strike it out on the heel, I'm going to hit the tape over here and vice versa, right? I'm going to hit this tape on the inside if I hit it out of the toe. So this is going to train me to hit the center of the face, and if my path is way from the inside or across it, right, then I might hit the tape too. So this is really going to train you to hit the center of the face and maintain a pretty neutral path that's down your target line, right? And just like that, if you avoid the tape, you'll hit the center of the face like it feels like I just did. And if you can master that drill and really, you know, find that you're consistently hitting balls, you know, without hitting that tape, then you'll be in good shape to hit those irons straight. Hasty Fat Joe, love the name. Can you please give me some tips for my driver? I struggle so much, sometimes I only use my 5-iron off the tee. Good question, Hasty. So, you got to remember, the driver, the goal is different. Our goal is to hit it up in the air and, you know, take spin off. Don't feel bad that, you know, you're like, hey, I'm struggling to transition between the driver swing and the iron swing. They are different. This is something that, you know, people struggle with, myself included. So, again, I do think that if you want to play better golf and lower your scores, then embracing the driver, learning how to keep it in play, right? So some tips for driver. Learn one shape. You don't need to learn about hitting draws and fades and low ones and high ones. Just when you're practicing driver, Tyler, buddy, you're going to have to stop spamming the chat, or we're going to have to, you know, make space for other people to say stuff. Learn one shot with driver and get really consistent with it, right? For me, that's a left to right shot. I try to hit every drive, you know, pretty straight, but with some amount of fade, right? Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Grant has tips on not releasing too soon. So you're talking, I think, about like kind of casting it from the top, right? Sending the club this way, right? So again, that drill I was just doing with the left hand only swings, you know, grab the club with just your lead arm, hold it out in front, and then step as you swing back, right? This will really help with sequencing, and you'll feel, you're like, well, I would never cast it in this drill, right? Because, you know, I would be going way too soon. I'm losing all my power. Like, I'm kind of just going this way, right? It would feel very strange to release it early. So remember that the cast is because you're applying too much right hand at the top and rushing to say, okay, we made the backswing, time to hit it, time to go, right? That's how you end up releasing it early. Whereas if you can learn, and it does take time, to give that club almost a half a second to not move at all, where your hands have stopped and everything's just kind of settling and gathering, and then you go, right? That will really help you, you know, take some of that cast out. Because I used to do that too. I used to get to the top, and I used to say, oh, time to hit it, let's go. And I would throw it this way, and I got really good at also extending and tilting and pushing the handle forward, right? So that I could still hit the golf ball. And I played some really good golf that way, you know, hit plenty of good golf shots, but really tough on your body and not super repeatable, right? So what I've been working on a lot, right, is just that sequencing, letting the arms drop this way, and then we release it. The release almost happens, to me, it feels like, you know, past my waist going down, right? Like I'm holding it until like right here almost, and then boom. Then we're releasing that energy because we want the club moving fast down there, not up here. We don't really care how fast it's going up here. The only thing that matters is how fast it's going when it hits the golf ball, right? So hopefully that helps. Lizzie said hi. Hey, Lacey. Elijah says, how do you set up to hit hybrid? I would play it just like an iron, just like a long iron. You know, maybe a ball forward of center. Who do I think is going to win the U.S. Open? I have a really hot take that I think Scottie Scheffler is probably going to win. Tyler needs to hit his driver better. That's funny. Stop Tyler. L Tyler. Okay, so I think we made the right call there. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. How do I take a divot after the ball without hosel shanking it? Okay, Chris, so two things here, right? You're saying, I think what you're saying is I can hit the center of the face or I can take a divot, right? And what I would ask you to do is try to almost separate those two things, right? To get to a point where, you know, whether it's through a feel in your swing, you're saying, okay, I can produce a divot every time. And now I'm going to work on hitting the center of the face, right? Because a hosel strike is really just an extreme heel strike, right? So what I would tell you to do is practice, you know, say you're on the range, right? And you're saying, okay, I want to take a divot, but I don't want to hit it out of the hosel. Tell yourself, okay, we're going to take a small divot and we're going to hit it out of the toe. Try to move your strike around the face, right? Because all you're saying is, my tendency is to hit it really on the heel. Well, if you learn how to hit it on the toe, then presumably you've built the skills to move that strike pattern around while still creating your divot, right? Such that you can consistently find the center of the face, right? But by practicing moving it around, you should consistently be able to find the center. So tell yourself, like, hey, I'm going to hit 5 balls in a row. I'm going to take a divot with every single one, and I'm going to strike them on the toe. Do you have any tip on what club I should be hitting from 100 in? So it really depends, Scotty. I think, you know, again, from 100 yards and in, our goal, number one, is always hit it on the green, right? You know, the fewer greens we can hit from inside 100 yards, the better. And our goal is really just to get it down in 3 total shots, right? So 1 shot on the green, 2 putts. That's an awesome outcome from 100 yards, from 75 yards, right? Just because we watch pros on TV, you know, hit wedges super close to tap in for birdie all the time, like that's not our game, right? So whatever club it is, it could be a gap wedge, a pitching wedge, you know, find a club that goes about that 100-yard number when you're practicing on the range. And I would use that club to start, right? But eventually you'll want to, you know, get a launch monitor, you know, access to a launch monitor. I rent time, you know, by the hour, right? So I know, you know, this is how far my 52 degree goes on average versus my 56 versus my 60. And so then I have a sense, or, you know, you could even write them down and say, this is how far each club goes, right? And then when you're out on the golf course, you know, that can really be helpful to understand, like, your distance control. But I think there's a couple different approaches that, you know, I've heard about good players who say every shot inside 100 yards, doesn't matter where it is, it's going to be a 60 degree. And I just, you know, practice hitting different swings for 80 versus 100 versus 50, right? Whereas another approach might be like, okay, I have, you know, like a 9 o'clock swing and a 10:30 swing and a 12 o'clock swing. And, you know, I hit different clubs with those swings to make the ball to go different distances. So again, just different approach. Best advice for complete beginner age 39. Well, welcome to golf, Kyle. Thanks for asking a question, hanging out on the stream. So my best advice, if you're truly a beginner, you've never played golf before, you're like, hey, this looks pretty fun. I'll say a couple things. Number one, just have fun with it, right? Nothing says you have to go out and spend a ton of money or buy brand new clubs to get into golf. You can, you know, start building your skill set and having a great time, you with just a handful of clubs, you can, get a driver and a putter, a couple irons, and maybe a wedge, at a thrift store or on eBay and be on your way. So I want to really impress, like, golf has an accessibility issue as it is. It's expensive. Greens fees are high. Equipment is expensive. Golf balls are expensive. But you don't need to spend a ton of money up front to get started. So with that said, the best thing I would tell you, Kyle, the number one place to start, learn impact. And when I say impact, I'm talking about how we deliver the club face onto the ball. And really, it's about kind of the 2 feet before we hit it and the 2 feet after, right? Everything else is just window dressing. You can swing the club out this way and underneath. You can swing it flat and inside and short like Jon Rahm, right? All the golf ball cares about is what's that club doing when it hits me. So to do that, right, once you've learned, some basic kind of setup and grip fundamentals, which we can talk about if you have questions, just drop your questions in the chat, right? Grab a short iron. I have a pitching wedge here. And you're going to practice over and over and over and over again on the driving range. Hitting this club, I don't know, 40, 50 yards. But you're going to practice really, how do I hit the center of that club face? How do I get the ball how can I hit the ball and then the turf or the mat? So hit the ball first and get that ball to fly in the air on a pretty straight line towards my target, right? And you're just going to train, boom. And certainly, towards, if you have like the last 10 balls of your bucket at the range, start making some bigger swings. But my best, the thing that you'll do well to remember is you can make a big full swing and hit the ball at 100% speed or 90%, right? At, high speed, whatever that is for you. And, test yourself, see where the ball is flying, what the shape is. Or you can work on your technique, right? That's, ground contact, hitting the center of the face. I don't believe that you can do both very effectively. I don't think you can swing at full speed and, really make meaningful progress in terms of, changing or improving your technique. What's up, Neil? Hey, Neil. Jarvin says, loving the stream so far. Thanks, Jarvin. If you want to subscribe like Jarvin, that really helps me out. Thanks, guys. Set up a 4 hybrid having issues with slices. Neil, my best guess is that it might be too far forward in your stance. Alexander, how can I stop pulling my iron? So the pull is from the path being too out to in, right? So you got to get that path more out to the right. Have that ball launch further, closer to your target line. You can do that by altering your swing. Or you could also move the ball position further back. That would also cause the ball to launch further to the right. But generally, you need to, if you're hitting a true pull, that means the face to path is pretty square, which is good. And you just got to get that path more down your target line. How do you get the driver back further in the backswing? Kevin, do you mean like, make the swing longer, right? More turn? I think that's going to be mostly about kind of flexibility and mobility, how much, thoracic flexibility you have, how much your shoulders can turn, right? And I think it's, if you're serious about improving your golf, then working on your mobility is a key part of that. I do stretching every day to make sure that my hips and my knees and my ankles are all working the way they need to, that my back is staying healthy. I've had a lot of back issues in the past, so I'm really cognizant of that. And I hit a lot of golf balls without back pain now, so I've largely fixed it, which is amazing. So that's where I would start, Kevin. So MTB, how do I stop coming over the top? Like, what's the best drill? We'll do this drill again. This is your over-the-top drill, guys. So use those later. Grab a head cover or a towel, something you can put down just behind and to the right of your golf ball, right? Like this. And this is going to, if you make an over-the-top swing, it's going to block your path to the ball, right? So the over-the-top move looks like this. Is inside, over the top this way, out to in path, right? Boom. We're going to hit that head cover. It's going to block that path. So to do the opposite, right, where I have a wide takeaway and then the club shallows or comes from the inside, right? This will train me to miss that head cover, right? And if I do that, I know that I've made a much more neutral pass at the ball, and you should see that over-the-top move start to, get, more neutralized. right? But remember, the over the top is just a reaction to the inside takeaway. So if you keep the club head out, right, keep it wide, you can do the Nelly Korda takeaway drill, right, where this is my target line, and I want to push this second ball straight back behind me, right? And that's going to force me to keep this takeaway nice and wide. And that's going to make it really hard to then further steepen it, right? Because I've got plenty of room. I'm just going to let the club shallow and hit it. So hopefully that all makes sense. Hey, Elias says he's going to subscribe. Amazing. Thanks, Elias. What's in between a ping pitching wedge and lob wedge? Probably a gap wedge. Leor says, driver swing speed is 105. I'm using a 55 S shaft. When should I get extra stiff? Well, I would definitely get fit if you're worried about your equipment, because you need the launch monitor data to really know. But 105 is probably pretty close to X, or kind of right on the cusp. So it depends, you know. There are shaft profiles where the S version might feel, you know, more stout than the X version of a different shaft, because that, again, just, you know, what your swing feels like, how aggressively are you transitioning. So it's super hard to answer in this kind of context, like what's the right, what's the right shaft for you. How do I fix my slice? Oh, we just did that drill. What club is in between pitching wedge and lob? Well, I have a gap wedge that's 52 degrees and a sand wedge that's 56 in between. Alexandria says, I had my first game of golf today. It wasn't great, but only have 3 hours experience. Only shot 9 over. That's amazing. Congrats on having your first experience with golf, and certainly won't be the last. Tips for shortening driver backswing to avoid overswing. Good question, Hood Skaters. I was just working on this myself. So the drills I was doing to feel like it was shorter, right, was really exaggerating the shorter backswing. So I had my driver out. You know, it's in the car at the moment, but grab your driver and make what feels like a half a backswing, right? And then make a full, kind of hit and follow through. And then, try to feel like you make a 3/4 backswing. And look on video, and it blew my mind. It felt like I was making not even a 3/4 backswing with my driver, and the shaft was still fully, parallel, right? I was overswinging it so much that 3/4 feel was actually parallel. So you have to exaggerate it, right? Really make it short. And just, it's going to feel weird. You're going to have to learn, a new motor pattern. But give that a try, Hood Skaters. What starts the downswing? For me, it's the weight shift to the left, right? So from here, it's, getting that weight from my left big toe into my left heel, right? And that starts everything sequencing down into the hit. With my driver, how can I make it easier not to have my club face open when striking the ball? It's been really hard for me not to. So good question, Luke. What I would tell you is you got to practice the opposite, right? Really get that face shut. Learn how to hit some big draws, some hooks, right? Feel that club face closing and what it feels like to do it, right? You want to create the opposite condition, and then hopefully land somewhere in the middle. Where's your dono button, bro? I don't know what that is. Your dono? How do you stop hitting fat shots? Good question, Junior Boy. So the fat shot, right, is because our weight gets stuck on the backside in the downswing. So if I just make a normal backswing, right, and my weight stays here on my backside, I'm going to hit the ground first, right? If I make a backswing and my weight stays centered, right, then I can hit the ball. But I can't, add a ton of shaft lean. I can't compress it that much. I can kind of scoop it or, hit it on the bottom of the club. But if I want to really hit the ball solidly, what I would do is make my backswing and then shift my weight to the left towards the target, right? And now I can really, boom, hit down on this ball with a lot of force, compress it, right? So the fat shot is because your weight is staying back here and the low point is too far behind the ball. So you got to shift your weight to get that low point more forward so you can hit the ball first and then the turf. What should you do for stretching? Good question, Elijah. I do a lot of hip stuff. So a lot of, hip flexor work, right? Stuff like this. Trying to make sure that my, hips are working properly. You can do, 90-90s, right? Where you, stretch your hips forward and back this way, right? And then switch sides. Right? So it's, I'm trying to make sure that I have, especially my left hip, right? That's where we're pivoting. There's a lot of force going into that left side. So trying to make sure that all of this stuff on the left side is in good shape, right? There's a great John Rahm TPI video where he goes through his whole kind of pre-round 10-minute stretching routine. And I've borrowed a bunch of stuff from there. He'll do some RDLs, right, to make sure that the hamstrings and the glutes are firing and stretched, right? We need the shoulders rotating in the golf swing, so making sure that the shoulders are active and mobile. And then finally, I love, because I've, again, had a lot of lower back issues, I do this stretch a ton, where I push off the ground, right, and I'm trying to create that space in my lower back, right? And so that's kind of a sampling of the kind of stuff that I would do, before a round or before I come in here and hit balls. So check out the TPI stuff. There's a ton of good info on YouTube for TPI. Kyle says, my friends finally sucked me in playing first round Sunday. Got some free clubs in a bag from them. Well, just have fun with it, Kyle. Yeah, I think that's great. If you're playing with friends, you've got a good environment to learn the game. That's awesome. Steezy says, oh, sorry, I missed BG Galaxy. Why am I towing my driver every time I hit help? Just subscribed. You're doing amazing. Well, that's very nice. Thank you very much. So again, if you're hitting it out of the toe, you got to learn to move that pattern around the face. So try to hit 5 balls in a row, all out of the heel, right? And see, what do I have to do? Is it my setup? Is it my, my path into the ball, right? But then remember, you can also create feedback. So if you're hitting it on the toe, right, you could put something, a piece of tape, right, on the heel side and try to make sure that you avoid that barrier, right? Because you'll only hit it if you're on the toe. If you strike the center of the face, right, then you shouldn't hit that tape, right? So I did a good job there, avoiding it, which is good because lately my miss has also been on the toe, which is tough. Really takes a ton of distance off on the toe strike as compared to the heel strike, just given where the center of gravity in the club is. Steezy says, hooking my driver with too high a ball flight as well. Any tips? So my first immediate quick fix tip is learn how to hit a low fade. See what you have to do to, get that face more open, the path more to the left, right? Fight fire with fire, guys. That's a John Sherman idea I'm going to borrow. He's a really smart golf guy. Gavin said hi. Sanders said hi. Walk Up Brothers said hi. What's up, guys? WWE Podcast said hi. Oh, donation button. I think we'll get one of those soon. But also, don't forget, guys. If you have money in your pocket and you're like, hey, I need to give this to somebody, find the Red Cross or, a blood bank. Your local mutual aid people, right? The time will come when maybe there's enough interest in what I'm doing with this channel to make some money or monetize in some way, right? But I would much rather you guys, if you're out there, don't send me $10, send the Red Cross $10, right? I would rather take money from sponsors and corporations than people who are like, hey, I just want to check this guy out on YouTube and try to learn something about my golf game. Kevin says you should be on the golf channel. I don't know about that. I strain my intercostal muscles golfing. How do you stretch that? Is that the ones in your ribs? Oh, I'm not really sure. I might do some research on that one because I don't want to give you the wrong answer. 9 over for 9 holes is great. That's amazing. I recently bought a new driver. Has a regular shaft. My old one was stiff. I went from playing a fade to now fighting my club on hooking the ball. So I think going back to a stiff shaft would definitely help, right? If you're, you found that change is what caused it and it wasn't, a swing change or anything like that. Great stuff, man. Any tips for early extension? Well, thank you very much, Hood Skaters. So for early extension, right, why are we doing that? Like, what is the cause? That's a symptom, but it's not the cause, right? The cause of the early extension is having not enough space on the downswing, right? And so to get to the ball, we have to get closer to it, right? And stand up and extend to get our body out of the way so that we can even hit the ball, right? And then we have to adjust, we have to tilt, we got to make all kinds of manipulations and really time it up to hit the ball solidly, right? But remember, the early extension is just a result of this, the inside takeaway. When we get the club in here, even if you don't get steep, right, there's just not a ton of space here. You have to kind of go like this to get back to the ball, right? So I just have fixed this in my own swing. I got really, really good, like a Will Zalatoris, right? A ton of side bend, tilt and extend, right? You can play good golf that way. It just causes so much stress on your body. And my body finally was like, dude, enough. Like, we cannot keep swinging this way. So I've just learned, finally, how to let the club shallow and keep my glutes back. And for me, I'll share, it wasn't about, number one, like I just said, I had to do a ton of stretching to get my body to where I could actually do that move, right? I did not have enough hip mobility 6 months ago to actually, like, keep it out of the way and go back like that, right? The way we need to, rotate through the ball. So that's number one. You have to actually get your body to where it can move properly. If you've done that, right, then the early extension will go away as soon as you sequence properly, right? So these lead arm swings I've been demonstrating a lot will really, really help with sequencing because when you do it, you'll notice, like, I would never early extend if I was just swinging this with my left arm, right? There's no need to, right? It would make things worse. So if I sequence it properly and I let the club transition, right, you have to almost feel like a Hideki swing, like there's a pause at the top. Because for me, the early extension was, okay, it's time to hit from the top, and I'd go like this, steepen the club, and then you got to extend and tilt, right? But if you sequence properly, there's just no need to. Like, your body will be like, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore. That feels strange. So that's my take on the early extension thing and how I went about really working on it. What do you think about playing with a closed club face versus open face? I like a square face. Joseph asks, what's the net called? This is the Net Return Pro. How much extension should I have in the follow-through? I think all of it, right? I mean, we want a wide arc. So wide arc going back and then a wide arc going through, right? So really trying to, yeah, I feel like, a pretty fair amount of extension in the follow through. BG says, thank you. I'm going to put it to work tomorrow with the range. Amazing. Charles says, how do you hit stringers? Do you mean, stingers? Let's hit a stinger. Stingers are fun. You know what? I actually have. You guys tell me, should we hit the old 3-iron? This is the Blade 3-iron from my old set. Really cool, kind of butter knife looking club. I like hitting practice shots with that, so we can hit stingers with this. Or we can use the graphite shafted 2-iron. This is one of my favorite clubs, even though it's not in the bag at the moment. We can hit a stinger with either one, but I'll let you guys pick. Walk Up Brothers said hi. What's up, Walk Up Brothers? Spider and Wilson said hi. Somebody else said hi. I'm so sorry. If it only shows me the characters of your name sometimes, and I don't know how to say hi back if it doesn't tell me your name, but I do see your chats. Hi, guys. What tips do you have on translating your game from the range to the course? I hit the ball great on the range. Flub 50% of the shots on the course. So, Steezy, if this is the case for you, you got to practice Graphite 2, or both. Both's a good answer. Way to go, Kyle. I love that idea. Let's do both. So, Steezy, you got to practice the way that you play golf, right? Let's say if you played 18 holes, you would make something like 36 full swings, ideally, right? Well, if you play 18 holes, 36 swings is not that many. That's, over the course of 4 hours, right? But golf is mentally tiring, right? Because you have to maintain your focus. You have to deal with the, good breaks and bad breaks. You have to, understand the yardage and a target, right? So my point is replicate how you play golf on the range if you're struggling to translate it. This is something that I am trying to do more of in my own practice, right? But, picture your home course wherever you play the most. And, you can do some stretching, whatever you do to warm up, right? But grab your 40 balls and play the course, right? So if it's a driver off one, hit a driver. And if you hit it to the left or right, then you say, okay, well, then I'm chipping back in play and then hitting an iron. Or, I hit a good drive, so now I have an 8 iron on that hole, right? And you're just going to play golf. And on the range, pick a target. I would change your target. But you're trying to recreate, the conditions as much as you can of what you're going to find on the golf course. And that can be a good way to practice, trying to translate it. Up to where should you do your swing? So in the backswing, as much as your body can turn, right? And it'll end up being your hands will be about level with your shoulders, maybe a little bit past, right? So as much as I can turn this way and keeping my arms up, right? And you'll find it's right about there for most people, which should lead the club, about parallel to the ground, maybe a little bit less, somewhere up here, right? I struggle, and some people in their beginning struggle with the swing getting too long. And I think my personal opinion is that you're better off having the swing be slightly shorter than slightly longer. How do I hit my drives further and normal at the driving range with a rubber tee? 165, and normal tee at the course. My carries like less than 100. Huh. That is confusing. I think... That is strange. I would make sure that, you're still, like, the ones you're hitting on the golf course are hit solidly out of the middle of the face, right? So you're comparing apples to apples. What will be a good drill to shallow out a swing for 3-wood? I struggled not hitting low stingers that roll. Well, so the stinger part is going to be more about, like, loft at impact, right? Like, are you de-lofting it a bunch? What's the impact condition? So I'm going to demonstrate the stinger. We're going to hit both the 2-iron with the graphite shaft and, oh, that's the 4-iron, the old blade 3-iron, right? And just quickly, for a stinger, what do we want to do, right? Just setup-wise, we're going to open the stance slightly, more this way. Ball position is going to come slightly back, right? So, for a 2-iron, I have it about in the middle. Whereas if I was hitting off a tee, it might be closer to, a little bit forward of center, right? So ball position back, stance open. And then the last piece is that the follow-through is going to be abbreviated, right? I'm not going to follow through up here. My hands are going to finish, further down because I really want to maintain the hands forward, right? De-lofting the club and hitting down on it, right? So I want this ball to come out low. And you'll see guys, I like doing this too. If you're hitting a stinger off a tee, you might actually even tee it up off the ground some, right? Because you're going to hit down on it so much. You don't want to hit it, into the turf in front of you. So by teeing it up a bit, even off the ground, you're giving it some time to launch into the air, right? But ultimately, it looks something like this, right? Where you're just going to really abbreviate that follow through. And just hit down on the back of the ball. Whoa. So let's try it now with the 3-iron. Same exact idea. Right? Man, this thing is intimidating to look down at. So something like that. Don't need a whole bunch of weight shift, right? I like to feel like the weight stays mostly on the left side, right, for this shot. Something like that. Hey, William's in here. What's up, William? Driver shots are the worst. All my shots either slice or don't go as far. Okay. I know you like a square face. Okay, so the question I think is two players that have... One has a closed face, one has an open face. Again, I think it really depends on, like, how consistently can you deliver that condition back into the ball, right? You can, if you hit big draws, but you're always, getting the ball to land around your target versus, playing with the face open and hitting big cuts. Again, the golf ball cares about the impact conditions, and we care where the golf ball lands, right? So as long as you can consistently create conditions that, have the clubs fly, to your target and fly a consistent distance, that's what we care about. Oh, amazing. Steezy said $10 to Red Cross on your behalf. That's amazing. Thank you very much, Steezy. What's my handicap? Usually close to 0. Sometimes it bounces around. It's been, it's been +1 point something. It's been 2 something. What do you do with your fingers on the grip? Good question, Kyle. And sorry if I missed your question, guys. Just drop it again in the chat. How much does your wife love golf? Not as much as me. Okay, so fingers on the grip, Kyle, right? You want to have this grip mostly in your fingers. So I'm going to try to demonstrate here. Hopefully you can see it, right? So left hand comes on the club. Again, kind of laying in the fingers this way. And you want to feel like this V, between your index finger and your thumb, is going to be pointed towards your right shoulder, right? And the same with your right hand when it gets on the club. That V, this one, is going to point at this right shoulder, right? So when you're done, it looks something like this. This is what my grip looks like, right? And, my right pinky just kind of sits on top. It's called the overlap grip. I used to interlock them for a long time. I did that. And then switch to this overlap. So that's kind of the basics on the grip, right? And again, it's important to remember, because we want this handle leaning forward at impact, I think you should set up that way and grip the club that way, right? Like, why make it more difficult? Because every video that you watch on fundamentals is going to say, make your grip this way, and they show you a neutral, like with the shaft forward, no shaft lean. And then 2 minutes later, they say, well, you have to lean the handle forward to make impact properly, right? Which is true. But if you do that and you don't adjust your grip, it's going to get much weaker, right? If say you have a neutral-ish grip like this, and then you push the handle forward, that face is going to open, right? So I think it's important for most people to grip the club in the condition they want to deliver into impact, right? So the handle's forward, right? And then you grip it. This will make your grip feel stronger. And I think most of us, will play better with a stronger grip, all things considered. So the difference between a regular handicap and plus handicap is just, so a plus just means that you are like better than scratch, right? Or that the differentials are negative. So let's make it easy. If you had a course that was a par 72 and had a rating of 72, and you shot a 70, you would have a differential. And again, let's assume some normal slope. There's not a huge impact there. You would have a differential of -2, right? And if every round that was in your handicap had a differential of -2 like that, then you would have a +2 handicap, right? 2 better than par, and vice versa, right? If you had the same, par 72 with a 72 rating, and all 8 of your 20 scores on that golf course were a 74, and you had a differential of 2, you would be a 2.0 handicap, right? So that rating and the slope from whatever tees you play, right, is factored into your handicap. So, which is not to suggest necessarily that, like, you know, somebody who has a 5 handicap and plays from, you know, 5,000 yards would have the same skill set as somebody who's a 5 handicap and plays from 7,000 yards. However, those things are taken into account when the handicap is calculated. So if somebody's ever like, well, what's your handicap from the tips or from the ladies' tees or whatever it is, you know, they're kind of telling on themselves, right? Because those things are factored into that differential. Okay, so Charlie's asking, I'm taking a large divot with my 3-wood lead to a very high shot that goes less than normal. So that sounds like you're making a really steep strike, right? Really hitting down on the ball too much. Taking a big divot and you're causing the ball to go straight up in the air and it's not going to go very far. It's going to spin a whole bunch, right? So you really need to shallow out your strike into the ball. And you should see that start to get better. Sam said hi. Whoa. I didn't realize the time. Well, guys, I have a very early tee time tomorrow, which is exciting, number one, to have a tee time. Have some good weather to be able to play golf. I'm going to hit a couple more golf shots here because I've been yammering and not actually practicing. Oh, that was nice and crispy. Really going to be focused on my short iron play. Did not really perform particularly well from like 50 to 150 yards my last time out. So if you guys have been enjoying the stream, I've really been enjoying hanging out. Please hit that subscribe button for me. It really does help us out. It is crazy to think about. I mean, when I started this channel at the beginning of the year, I thought maybe if I post 1,000 videos, you know, or shorts or whatever in a year, I could, you know, build a following of like 1,000 subscribers. So to be almost double that in only a few months, guys, is really, you know, I mostly just want to say thank you to the audience, all you guys who continue to come back and support me, to, you know, hang out, to ask good questions, right, to make this engaging. You know, to make it a community where, you know, it's largely self-police, right? You guys don't tolerate people saying crazy stuff or, you know, being super negative because, you know, I'm not going to. So if you guys, you know, beat me to it and you keep the stream in the chat, you know, in a good spot, I don't even have to worry about all that. You know, the amount of support has been really, really unbelievable to me. So I'm just going to keep trying to show up, you know, share some knowledge, try to be myself, try to keep getting a little better at this. I think I'm better at explaining the drills and talking through stuff than when I started doing the live stream, certainly. But I'm just going to try to keep getting better, hopefully keep growing the platform and you know, sharing this stuff with more people. So we're going to keep doing it. Hopefully you guys will, you know, continue to spread the word, keep showing up for me. I'll keep showing up for you, and, you know, just trying to, again, create a place that's, we can all just kind of come and hang out and talk about golf or even other stuff, right? I've talked about, you know, mental health and sobriety and some more, you know, heavier stuff, right? But, you know, that's because I think it's important to talk about. But mostly, you know, there's plenty of negativity in the world, right? You turn the news on, you know, things seem pretty bleak a lot of places you look, but, you know, if people can hang out on this stream and watch me hit golf balls or work on my own game, you know, while learning something themselves and just getting a reprieve, you know, a little bit of a break from all that crazy negativity, you know, that really is the goal. So hopefully all the practice and investment in my game that we've been doing will start to pay off in some lower scores soon. But just with the weather, guys, it's been so tough to play enough outside golf to really get a good feel for, you know, scoring and making putts. And, you know, you can do a lot of good work inside and hit balls, but all right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's stream. It is late, but thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate all the support. If I didn't get to your question, come back to the next stream. Drift, this is the Net Return Pro Series. I should get a like a referral code maybe, and I could just put that up so people can learn about the net. Happy to help, guys. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate all the support. We'll see you next time.